Do you want some impressive aim? Then you need to watch these 21 aiming tips and tricks in Apex Legends. All of these will work on both mouse and keyboard and controller, and they will take your aim to the next level. Tip 1. Lower your sensitivity. Using a relatively slow sense, whether you're on a controller or mouse and keyboard, will almost always improve your aim. This is because it allows you to make smaller adjustments in your aim and avoid overshooting your target. If you take a look at the majority of the top level pro players, they use a slow sensitivity. Now you're probably thinking, Esidi, but when I watch Fade, he has an insanely high sensitivity and I want to be like him. Well, to be honest, the harsh truth is that the majority of content creators use a high sensitivity due because it makes their gameplay look more impressive. And in turn, it gives them more watch time. Now you could make the argument that the high sensitivity is required for some movement techniques, but at the end of the day, hitting your shots is almost always more important than any sort of movement tech you can pull off. If you want precise, consistent aim, lower your sensitivity and follow the next tip. Tip 2. Learn where to look when aiming at your enemies. Should your eyes be glued to the crosshair or the enemies you're trying to shoot? Well, it depends. If the enemy is far away from you, I would say 25 meters or more with a 1x optic, or 40 meters or more with a more zoomed in optic. Look at your crosshair while aiming because it allows you to focus on lining up your shot. If the enemy is closer to you, look at them while aiming so you can better adjust to their movement. The exact distance itself is more of a preference, and depending on the weapon you're going to be using, it will be different. But what will never change is the importance of the next tip on this list. Tip 3. Master your crosshair placement. So crosshair placement is very simple in theory. Always keep your crosshair where an enemy is likely to walk into it. Makes sense, right? The closer the crosshair is to the enemy before you start aiming, the less adjustments you will have to make. Now, when you look at Apex players, most of them have terrible crosshair placement. That's because all the loot is on the floor, so players get into the bad habit of running around staring at the ground. But please, stop this. The enemies aren't going to pop out of the ground, so raise your crosshair and improve your aim. Tip 4. Warm up before playing. Doesn't have to be anything over the top, but 5 minutes in the firing range or one quick match in the mixtape game mode will get you warmed up fast, and you will play better in the following matches. If you take a 20-minute time period in Apex, this includes matchmaking, loading to a lobby, looting up, and finding enemies. You are only going to get a few opportunities to warm up your aim. If you spend the same amount of time or even less in the firing range or mixtape game modes, you will have many more aiming opportunities. And while warming up, you can practice the next tip. Tip 5. Hip fire more often. Now, most of the time your aim will be better when you aim down sights, but you can't ignore the importance of hip firing. Every time you aim down sights, your movement speed will slow down, and in close range battles, you need to find a balance between aiming and movement to ensure you don't get eliminated. You want to be able to move faster while you're shooting your enemy, so that's why hip firing is so good. All weapons in Apex Legends do have different hip fire spray patterns, but you'd be surprised at how effective some of the weapons can be without needing to ADS. Then there is also a little technique you can use to have perfect accuracy while hip firing in Apex. You want to start by firing your weapon while aiming down sights and then un-ADS, and then your first 3 to 7 bullets, depending on the weapon, will be the same as if you were still ADS. Then you can aim down sights again and repeat this until you have to reload. And of course, the nice part about this trick is that you can strafe faster while you aren't ADS, so the enemies will have a difficult time shooting you. But if that doesn't help, you need to start thinking about tip 6. Slow down and take your time. A lot of Apex players, especially when their rank is on the line, tend to rush through their actions and make mistakes. The enemy will run onto their screen and they will blow through all of their ammo without hitting a shot. Or they will let them know they have a sniper by firing a bullet by their feet. Slow down and focus on making the most of each bullet you shoot. If you're using a sniper, take your time, aim for the head so you can deal the most damage possible. If you're using an automatic weapon like the R99 or the car, they tend to go through a magazine in seconds, so you need to follow the next tip. Tip 7. I'm not sure what the official name for this is, but I call it screen centering. The idea is that instead of aiming down sights and then dragging your reticle to the enemy, you want to get the enemy centered onto your screen and then aim down sights. Since your sensitivity is much lower while aiming down sights, this will speed up the aiming process. A very simple tip, just center your enemy onto your screen before aiming down sights and then make the minor adjustments after. The next 3 tips all have to do with controlling the recoil of the gun. Tip 8. Learn the recoil pattern of your most used weapons. The most basic way you can do this is to make sure you have impact marks turned on in your video settings. Console players will have it enabled by default. Then go up to a wall and shoot it without controlling a recoil. You should be able to see the pattern on your screen. Now, to control your recoil, all you have to do is move the aiming input in the opposite direction. So if you look at the RE45's recoil pattern, it kicks up to the right. So to control the recoil, all you need to do is pull down to the left. Now, if you're too lazy to check out the patterns in game, you can use these screenshots I took for some of the weapons. Keep in mind, Respawn does like to change the pattern slightly in their update. But no matter what the pattern is, you can abuse the way the game is coded to take away vertical recoil. Tip 9. Recoil smoothing. So normally when you shoot, most weapons, they kick up. But interestingly, in Apex Legends, if you're moving your aim horizontally while firing, the vertical recoil disappears. To abuse this mechanic in-game, strafe in one direction while you're pulling your aim horizontally in the other direction. So if I'm strafing to the right, I'm pulling my aim to the left and vice versa. I find it works really well with SMGs because of their fast strafe speed. I know, it's a bit dumb that it's easier to aim while moving moving than standing still. But just wait until you find out about this next recoil control tip. Tip 10, jitter aiming. With automatic weapons, shake your aim and it will cancel out your recoil. So how it works is that every time you make a quick adjustment in your aim, it will cancel out the recoil, so you want to jitter aim at the speed of your weapon's fire rate. I use this most often with the flatline and the havoc at long range, but you can definitely make it work with the other weapons if you have enough practice. Jitter aiming is mostly just a mouse and keyboard trick, but I've seen some players find success with it on controller. Tip 11. It might sound weird, but sit closer to your monitor or TV. When you are closer to the screen, the game takes up more of your field of view, so you can see the small details in the game easier. And of course, there would be less distracting things in your sight. But if you are going to sit closer to your monitor, it will improve your aim, but you will have to follow the next tip on this list. Tip 12. Take breaks to avoid fatigue. I have finally noticed after years of playing Apex Legends that I always play the best in the first few matches of the day, then I get progressively worse until I eventually just go offline. This is because you can build up a lot of fatigue playing Apex, and your aim will worsen as your fatigue builds up. What I do is play until I start making poor decisions and missing my shot, then I'll take a break and go do something else away from the game, such as watching a video by Esidi and dropping a like. But in all seriousness, you'll return to the game with full focus and better aim. If taking a break doesn't help you lock in your aim, follow tip 13. Change your reticle. When you play the game the same way for hours on end, you will start to autopilot while aiming. What I love to do to concentrate on my aim after autopiloting is to change my reticle. As soon as you change your settings, the game has a different feel to it and it forces you to pay attention. It doesn't matter what your reticle is, but my favorites are cyan and bright green as they stand out in game. If you want to quickly improve and test out your aim, follow tip 14. 1v1 your friends. Hopping into the firing range and having gunfights with your friends allows you to try out different settings, different aiming techniques, all of this quickly without needing to go searching for enemies in a normal match. You can also ask your friend to do certain different things, like play a certain legend or do certain movement tech, so you can get practice with that, and you can try out whatever weapon you want. If you don't have any friends that play Apex, you can leave your in-game ID down in the comment section down below, where I'm sure there are other players looking for someone to play with. And if that doesn't work, you can join my Discord channel in the description below. It currently has over 250 Apex Legends players, and I'm sure you'll be able to find someone to 1v1. Then after you do that, you're going to want to follow tip 15. Invest in high quality equipment. A good monitor, mouse, or controller won't make or break your aim, but having poor quality equipment will hold you back from your full potential. You don't need to go out of your way to spend a ton of money on the latest and greatest gear, but if you have some money to spare, instead of spending it all on an heirloom or Apex packs, maybe you want to buy a new controller or upgrade your monitor. But even the best equipment out there won't help you if you don't follow tip 16. Stay calm under pressure. You often see players start to play bad under pressure and miss all their shots, but then those very same players will have some fairly good aim while the pressure is pulled off of them. You probably noticed the same thing. You're in a 1v1 and you can't seem to land your shots, but then when you're in a 3v1, you can easily laser down your enemies. This is all because when you start to feel pressure, you miss your shots. Stay as calm as possible and don't let the pressure affect how you play. Tip 17. Adjust your FOV. There are two factors to take into account when choosing your field of view. First off, the larger your FOV, the more you can see, but then your enemy is a smaller target on your screen. When you lower your FOV, the enemy takes up a larger portion of your screen, making it easier to hit your shots. Now, it is true that no matter what your field of view is, it will take the same amount of time to perform a full 360. However, the lower your field of view, the faster your sensitivity will feel. This is because with a lower FOV, your aim will move more pixels than if you're on a higher FOV. So you want to find your own middle ground where your aim is the best. For most players, I would recommend around 100 to 106 FOV. But if you want the perfect sensitivity all of the time, follow tip 18. Adjust your per optic settings. Your sensitivity will feel slower with a more zoomed in optic. So to compensate for this, you want to adjust your per optic settings to increase the multiplier. The exact numbers itself are personal preference, but if you're wondering, this is what I use for both mouse and keyboard and controller. If you want to use ALC per optic setting without having to use advanced look controls, save this video. Then you want to click on per optic settings, make sure you have them turned off, then go to advanced look controls, turn them on, click per optic settings and adjust them accordingly. Then make sure you leave the per optic ADS sensitivity turned on, then go back, turn off custom look controls, go back again, and now you have ALC per optics without needing to use an ALC sensitivity. But even with the best per optic settings, don't ignore tip 19. Predict the enemy's movement. A big part of aiming is predicting the movement of enemies based off the movement patterns you encounter often in game. Take this clip for example. I know that when an enemy is low, they are often going to use their shields behind cover and then jump up to see where you are. Because I had this in mind, I was able to quickly react to the enemy and hit this headshot. What I like to do to predict the enemy's movement is to ask myself what I would do if I was in their their situation, and more often than not, they will do that exact same thing. Try this out and I guarantee you that you will catch some enemies off guard and pick up some easy kills. And you will definitely improve if you follow the next tip. Tip 20. Use your movement to help you aim. You shouldn't only be aiming with your aiming input. You need to use your movement keys to help you follow the enemy. So if the enemy is just left of your reticle, instead of moving your aim to the left, take a few steps to the left until you line up with your enemy. This will help you track your enemies much easier. But if you really want to improve your aim as fast as possible, follow tip 21. Use aim training drills. This will give you the most exposure to aiming in Apex Legends, and it is the fastest way to improve. If you need some drills to try out in the firing range, watch this video up on the screen now. Drop a like, and thanks for watching.